Greetings, everybody, fellow coders. If you do not code and you're not into coding, you probably won't like this show. Even if you are, you may not like the show because I'm not an entertainer. I'm a coder trying to capture the process of coding. One of the most important processes when you are coding that is a very soft skill that they just don't talk about is context switching. Context switching is just a reality. It's an absolute reality. I think that if you were to fall back to, I don't know, 1988, maybe 1995, 97, you would go to an organization. They might have 4 or 5 projects, and they would have a couple people, maybe three people per project. They may have a really, really sharp person that sort of hops around between the projects. Somebody that's just like super, super advanced. You might also have a super, super junior person that hops around between the projects. But for the most part, most projects would have one too many, or a couple, at least one, but probably 4 or 5 different developers on it. And then, but if you were to go to 2024, 2025, probably starting around 2020, maybe, it kind of flipped and it got to where companies have 5 or 6 projects, or they may have 20 projects and 5 or 6 developers that try to maintain all those projects. So even the idea that you might work on the same thing for a whole day is probably a bit uh, antiquated. It's just sort of just not a. It's not bad. It just doesn't. The just the reality of it seems like the number of actual coders like I would bet that if you went to 2012 and you were like and you counted the actual people who commit things to whatever source control and all that, like actual people who write actual code and not like, oh, we go in and I just go in and update some JSON file or something. Like they actually write code. You probably and you were to take that number and you were to compare that to the number of people who actually write code today. I bet you it's probably like a fourth, a third, maybe a fifth. Like so, let's say there was 1 million people doing that back in 2012. My gut tells me that today in 2026, you have about 100,000 people doing that, 200,000 people doing that, something like that. A massively reduced fraction. Now, I will also say that if you were to go back and you say, oh, well, how many humans work in IT back then? You probably had like 1 million people developing. Let's say I'm just making that number up. If it's more the ratio that I'm talking about. You have like 1 million people actually coding, and you probably had like 5 million. So 5 times as many people that aren't coding, because there's so many tasks and so many different things you could do that are coding adjacent. Um, so you have like 1 million developers, and then 4 other million non-developers. Man, I bet you maybe not 2026, but if you went to 2024, I bet you there was 40 million people working in coding adjacent jobs, and then like uh, 1/5 the number of actual people writing code. Like, so the number of like support staff just freaking went through the roof. I mean, just all kinds of crazy people. Like, I've worked at this one place that was just dumping gobs and gobs of money into a software effort. And then like our director was this lady who, like when you went to her LinkedIn, like all of her experience, she was like this bald lady that like she purposely bald. I think she had a really good reason. She was bald because she said she was like kind of supporting her mom who had cancer, but um she she had never ever she'd like worked in hospitality her whole life, and she now suddenly she was in charge of software development, and at she was a director level, and it was just like and that's really crazy. Or I once worked at this. I'm just gonna say it. When I worked at CNN, I remember AT&T bought us, and they were like, "Oh man, you guys are doing great. Let's go ahead and just let's. We want to like our staff was like 90 people, and they wanted to make it like 400 people, and they said when they said they wanted to hire like four VPs and then like X number of junior developers and developers and all that. And then like a year later, a year to the date later, when we did the analysis, and at first they said they were going to hire all the developers first. They were going to start from the bottom and work their way up. And then a year later, they had hired four vice presidents and one junior developer and like three directors. That was it. One junior developer is the only person you had to code, and he was a junior. And the only reason he got that job is because he just happened to be at a meetup with one of the directors that had been around for a long time, and that director vouched for him, and then he got a position, and that was it. But anyway, so I am working on the Say Hello project. I remember that, and if I remember, I watched the video yesterday from last week, and it looks like what I'm working on is the Dreamhost and routing and trying to get the routing working right over at Dreamhost. Now, I would say if I'm was watching me right now, I'd be like, dude, why are you worrying about that right now? Why can't you worry about that later? And it's just like, man, that's just not true. There was a time when that was true, but it's not true now because basically so many decisions that you're going to make in a software, in a, you know, a routing centric application are informed by how you set up the routing. And if you start building stuff on top of assumptions and then those assumptions don't play out to be true, it could be very, very, very difficult to actually get the routing to work properly. And the problems are just like weird, not well documented, and like there are a lot of people who have agendas that would like this problem to happen. Because for me, the problem is that if I push it out to a traditional Apache application, there's just some idiosyncrasies that need to be taken care of. And they do affect the way the routing is set up in your code. And so you really, if you want to get that working properly as early in the in the process as possible. So when I go open recent, what I'm expecting, and I do find that to be like a much more healthy way to be, but I'm expecting say hello to be after flashcards in this dropdown because theoretically I worked on say hello last Saturday. I worked on flashcard last Sunday. So say hello is a little older. We have in fact stopped our browser. So I mean our server. So I'm gonna shift over here. I'm gonna close this thing here. Oh, that's cool. I actually gave myself ah next step. So it looks like I got it working. I'm kind of surprised I didn't give myself a URL. So I'm going over here. I like email.com, and then this is say hello. And so let's go ahead and just link here. And so you might have noticed, and this is such a funny and interesting thing, but you might have noticed that the route actually, I went to say hello. So like, let's just do this. I'm going to copy. And then I'm just going to go straight there. I'm copying that and I'm going to paste it into a new browser. And if you watch, you see that the ENUS shows up, gets pushed too. Now, this is always like one of those things that I never really understood. And it just really like drove me nuts. But like if I hit like it, but I would kind of just file that away as something I was going to worry about someday in the future. Um, but if I hit reload, I get not found. Like how crazy is that? And so my understanding of what's happening, I'm not 100% confident on this, but my understanding of what's happening is if you were to look at the underlying file structure, I know this to be a fact. If you look at the underlying file structure, there is no folder called en and there's no folder called us at the server. There's only say hello folder. And um, so what happens is like, so if I go to say hello, it Angular gets control. Angular decides that enus needs to be in the URL. And the server never knows about that. It does it without ever any kind of server hit. So if we hit F12 and we look at the network tab, and we get rid of this, so you'll never see any kind of network hit to enus. But then if I hit reload, you'll see that it tried to go to enus and it couldn't find anything there. And that's because there is nothing there. And I think even if you hit back, okay, so because we were there before, it took us here. So that was always really weird to me. And so, yeah, there is no folder called en and there's no folder called us. So what we have to do is we have to tell the server that we want it to always reload everything to, we want it to redirect anything that comes anywhere after this to go um, to give it to Angular to send it to Angular to process. Um, and it's really not that hard to do, but it is weird, and I've never really had time. Every time I've ever had to do that, um, it's always been a very strange experience for me. But what we need to do is we need an htaccess that does what we want. And I don't. Okay, so we're here. And I can't remember. I think I might have, to make space, I might have deleted all my voice stuff off of here. But oh, it's going to be at GitHub though. I mean, I just deleted it off this computer because I am not doing it. I don't not plan to ever do any more maintenance on it. So let me go to my repo, and we are going to voice. I'm looking for voice. Hmm. I thought I'd called it voice, but now I'm starting to wonder. Did I pass it? Oh, web. Maybe it's this. But this is a 2024 now, I think. I don't know where voice is. Let's see. VOI. Okay, so I clearly didn't um, call it voice. Let's see. Media system. Oh, it's got, oh, Angular. Yeah, that's this one right here. All right, so let's go in here and then we'll see that we have, I like email. And then we see that we have changes for deployments and index dot tweaks for Dreamhost deployment. And here's our HD access. All right, so this is what we need. And none of this makes any sense to me. I will admit though that I never um, tried. All right, so this is some kind of language. It looks a lot like HTML actually. And I guess some kind of parser goes in here, and then I think there's an actual program on on in Apache called mod rewrite. And .c I think means that this is probably written in the C language. And so apparently the first thing you want to do is you want to tell it to turn the rewrite engine on, and then you want to tell it what the base is voice, but I don't think it's voice for me. I think it's say hello. So I think this is saying anytime anything goes to say hello, or anytime it comes across this thing, this access configuration file, um, then to go ahead and rewrite this stuff, which I don't. It says don't rewrite existing files or directories. All other requests go to index.html. And I believe we do have an index.html. Now we'll validate that. So basically what we want to do is we want to put this file here into this folder, this say hello folder. And then I believe when they try to hit anything beyond say hello, it's going to come and look at this and all that. I have no idea how any of that stuff works, but I do know that it does work, or it has worked for me in the past. So now I'm going to go to FTP. And it's weird because what's really strange about the whole thing is that what's really, really strange about the whole thing is that, let's see, I think, is that, yeah, I can't remember what I was going to say again. I've been doing that a lot the last couple days. All right, so basically I'm trying to go to my ilikeemail.com, and I have a whole bunch of sites in my FTP. And I have one called I Like Email, and I have one called Main. So I'm assuming that's the one that I use. And then, yeah, I have a folder in here. Trying to see, is there anything? Because I want to share as much of this as I can, because I do think this is a little known sort of. See, I don't want that to show up. So what I'm trying to avoid is my username. I have like I didn't create this username, but like they generated a username for me. But it's important that you keep usernames. You, I, it can be very helpful to keep that as hidden to protect your username as much as you protect your password. I'm trying to figure out how to get it to get onto the screen without. Yeah, I can't figure it out. But anyway, so I know what I can do. I'll just do this. Control S. I'll copy the folder. Don't think there's anything in here that's sensitive. And then I think I have to hit this guy here. Yeah, so here's in my snipping tool, and on the right side, right pane of my code, it shows this. Right, so you see all kinds of stuff. I didn't do any of this stuff. I think all this stuff gets set up when you set up the account. But so now I'm going to click into the ilikeemail.com folder, and then I'm going to do that again. And this is, again, the left side after clicking into the folder. I use this snipping tool all the time at work. Okay, so we have flashcards, we have say hello, we have voice. Voice is like my favorite. I use it all the time. It's really cool. And it's like one of those things where anytime I've ever shown it to anybody, I've been so proud afterwards because I love how it looks. I love how it works. I love how technical it is. Um, so it's just like one of those things. So now I'm going to go into say hello. And so Control S. So this is what my say hello looks like. Now I have noticed that like when you work with a lot of younger people these days, like most of them can, like this is more than enough information for them to figure it out. But basically I'm using FileZilla and this is what my say hello folder looks like. As you see, there's an index.html file. So that was the question I was curious about. This will rewrite rule index XML with an L in there. Index.html. And as you see, we do have an index.html. All right. So that is the right side. And now on the left side, I have to navigate on my local drive and trying to find this specific thing. I think it's called say hello. And I'll do this control S. So I found the folder that I'm working on, and it's basically the same as this over here. And so this is the left side of the pane. So everything else was on the right side. As you see, we have this, and this matches up right here. And so we want to navigate to our dist directory, this directory right here. No, we don't. We actually want to navigate to I like email. We want to navigate into there so that I can upload the HTTP file. So I'm clicking on I like email. So basically I see this on the left side and this on the right side. And so I'm just going to double click on this folder in my FTP and it will automatically upload it. And then I don't know what you have to do. Oh, it actually did it. Oh, yeah. So now if I hit reload, see it automatically. Now I can hit reload. And so that works. So now, so the next step, okay, so that's important, and I do want to sort of have some closing thoughts on that, is that so now like if there is an issue when I FTP out there, as I write more code and get things working, if there's some sort of technical issue, it's not anything to do with rewrites and stuff. That is one less moving part. That's one thing that has been conquered. Now, I believe, okay, so get I like email working, and now we want to get, um, okay, so that's done. So I'm just going to get rid of this. And then next step is check works at GitHub. So one of the things I had set up, and it's like something I really like, is I have like github.io. I deploy these to there as well. And I don't know what we have out there. I think we actually do have this out there already, and I think it will work. But maybe not. I don't know if we pulled it up. Let's go ahead. Let's see what we have. So this is github.com, and I believe it's .io. And see, this is my speech analyzer up there, but this is my Say Hello project. What? I feel like that's happened before too. Say hello. Gosh darn it, github.io. Say hello. Okay, so that's not right. So let's go ahead and let's go look at our build. Can't now I'm like, oh, I don't think I documented this well enough. So we want to look in our package.folder and see if I left myself some little It's see, I wish I had. So it is supposed to be. Oh, say hello UI. And then, well, okay, let's try. Let's just check that anything works. So voice speech analyzer should definitely work. Okay, good. And see, it did push it to the API. And then we're looking for the similar thing, but it's going to be say dash hello dash UI. Is that right? Probably. No, it's not. It's the name of the repo. It's gonna, yeah, that's not right. Actually, it's going to be okay. So let's go to our repo. It's GitHub, Marty the party, and it's called Say Hello. It sure would be nice if if we could have a link from here to our. But it is Say Hello, so okay. So I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. I have this repo and I set up GH pages. Do you know the can you determine the URL? Question mark. All right. Yeah, so I feel like that's exactly where we're at. Let's try it again. Oh, what did I do? I don't know. Oh, it was martytheparty.github.io, not www.github.io. I feel like, okay, this is actually the place um, to have this. Okay. All right. So those are my two URLs, two things. Okay. So now I don't think it doesn't look like, yeah, so it didn't push it to ENUS. So I don't think I have the latest code out there. So I think, and it's kind of cool. Like this is one of the coolest things that I've run into in a very long time. But I will also say that this is just the perfect example of something that just works great for like a couple of years and then like just quits working. So you don't want to get too um, dependent on it. But then, what really makes me wonder is like I have a very similar feeling towards ChatGPT. Like I don't want to get too dependent on it because I just don't know that it's going to be. It sure feels a lot like, when I was a little kid, they used to show these little public service announcement cartoons where they would show like a drug dealer and giving you the drugs for the first time, and then once you get completely dependent on the drugs, then they start charging you. Um, that is what ChatGPT feels like to me. Okay, so I think we have to do the build. I think we figured out that we have to do the build, which is weird because this has a build in it, and then deploy. But let's try deploy. Deploy GitHub. Here we go. npm, am I in the right place? npm run. Oh, misspelled deploy. You could tell I misspell things a lot because I almost instantly catch it when like something doesn't work. That is definitely at the top of my list of things to watch out for. But supposedly this whole thing, or supposedly I have seen this whole thing just kind of just it literally creates a whole branch. It does all kinds of stuff. It takes a little bit, but it does all kinds of stuff. But man, if this works, then we are like, then we're back to coding again, which is my favorite thing. Um, it's a shame because, used to be like if you were a good coder, if you could code, you would get hired to code. Now it's like you are brought into it is definitely more of a adventure now. Like it's just like, okay, here's what we're hoping to get done, and let's see if we can all get together and make this happen. I would say that describes software development today. If you were to, like, I literally knew people back in the 1990s, um, who their job, like, they literally got locked up in a safe. They would sit in a safe, locked up for 8 hours. I think they got out for lunch, and they had lunch together. They were observed while they were having lunch, and they were on camera the whole time being observed having lunch. And then I really like this. Whoever decided to add this, have a nice day. That was nice. Thank you so much. Even if you don't see it, at least maybe we'll set some positive stuff at you. But they would get locked in a safe, and they would get coded. They get these little coding tasks, and the only feedback they would get is a green light, a red light, green light, or a red light. And the green light would mean that their solution was selected, and the red light would mean that their solution was rejected. And so they would get a little coding task, like a little like take this and like you have an array and it's got 6 items in it. Find the one that has the longest text or something, just some little thing like that. And then you would have like 3 hours to work on that. And, you do it in like 6 lines of code or something, 5 lines of code. And then, um, and then you'd have lunch and you weren't allowed to talk about anything with work related, at your lunch, and you were absolutely forbidden from meeting with these people after work. Everything was highly, highly secure and quiet. I've never worked it like this way, but there were people who told me about it. And then maybe years and years and years later, they might be working on some other thing and run across their code in it. So the one that there was like this like a little submarine that I guess ships drag behind them. So it's like a foot long, a little foot long thing, and it just attaches to the back of a ship, and it goes like 1,000, 2,000 feet deep, and it can see all kinds of like it has a big um, tether, and it's connected, and it can see all the stuff that's going on. And so this guy that I knew, he worked on that, but he found his code. It was like super super high super secret when he worked on it in the vault, and then years later he was working on it and it was no longer super secret for whatever reason. It was just like it had been moved into like confidential, and then so that's why he was able to just chat about it with me because we were working on similar projects. And um and then he was telling me, "Oh yeah, I remember writing this code, like and all that for that." So like basically the point was is in 1998, if you could code, if you were a software developer, you spent your day coding. That's what you did, and they told you exactly what to code, and they gave you exactly the parameters, and a lot of people really like that. But then, like in 2026, it's more like, hey, let's try to get this thing done. who are the right people? Let's try to figure it out. Blah 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 blah. It's just very very different. Even like my last very highly confidential secret job that I had years ago was like we built these visualizations, but we really didn't know what the visualizations were for. And we'd get like whenever something would break, we would get like this like very brilliant people would create the and like something that was like what broke, and then we would fix it, and then we'd commit it, and the code would go back through, and then they would test it, and who knows, it was like 10 layers of people away. Um, so it still happens, but it's even at that job, it wasn't like, hey, code this, code that, code this. They're like, yeah, this is broken. Can you figure it out? It's more like again, more like an adventure than like being directed what to do. I like both. I think both are perfectly enjoyable. Yep. And it worked. ENUS. So now we automatically, and then if we hit reload, it works. And we didn't have to do anything special for GitHub pages. Somehow they just know how to do it. And when you look at the network tab, you will see that you do get a 404 error. See, it's like, hey, this doesn't exist. And then for some reason, it gets a 404, and then this 404 somehow then goes and gets all my code for me. See, it actually returns a 404 and then actual data, then the actual website. I did not know that. I just saw that we were getting 404s. But when I was dealing with this stuff, it was like things were broken, and I was just scrambling to try to figure out. But see, yeah, this is marked as a 404, but then actually returns the actual HTML. So it is weird. It is weird. Like, I don't know why they would, because they're purposely given a 404 response. It doesn't seem like the appropriate response. GitHub via varnish. And yeah, so that's interesting. So my browser thinks that it's showing a 404 page, but a really nice 404 page. Yeah, so they basically just like, yeah, I guess they must have something that goes in there. So anyway, so that is done. I mean, something that like looks once it the 40 they must have like some sort of 404 capture interceptor that um returns code, and I guess if it is I guess if it really doesn't exist, like it can't, and there's no way to figure it out, then it must send you to that like that page we were just at, the docs page. But if it does search up the line and finds anything, I guess this is what it does. It just finds it and throws it out there. I bet you they get some really interesting bugs out of that. But anyway, so what's next? The next thing is, so we're done with that. Okay, so the next thing is, I believe, well, okay, so we need to commit and push. Okay, so one quick test, one last test on test. It works at say hello at I like um and GitHub. And then I think we have like issues to work on. Um, then push. Push. I guess one of the I don't remember. I can't remember if we want to. if we have another thing to get the Cypress up to date, or if we need to do that as part of this. Just can't remember. If we already have like a GitHub, I mean, if we already have like an issue for testing, updating Cypress to test these. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. So this is be the next thing that we'll work on, and that's okay. So, and I think it would be helpful to actually give me, I guess I want to get rid of this. I'm just going to add this as a comment. And then, so those are basically, I want to make Cypress um, like where the base URL is controllable. Or maybe when I launch it. So maybe when I go into my package, I believe there's a, yeah. So maybe I can say, I can pass in the URL through the script, and then it can run its tests against uh, the um, websites, the two websites. And if that works, that'll be really nice because then um, as we push things out, like we make changes and we push it and make sure it works, it's easy. It'll be super simple just to hit some buttons and check that everything that's working locally is also working at I like email and then also working at GitHub. So that is the next thing. So we won't be coding. And then once we get that working, then I'm going to update this so that we can see that. So it'll tell me, oh, okay, this is English US or what? Okay. So, anyways, I gotta go. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everybody. Happy coding.